Most people rush past the quiet moment because silence feels unproductive. But silence is where alignment begins. Before anything changed around Jesus, something settled within him. Not panic, not pressure, certainty. He did not beg heaven to move. He positioned himself to agree with it. That agreement is what opened the door. When the heart is steady, power flows without resistance. That is why miracles followed him, not because he chased them, but because he was already rooted in purpose before the need appeared. This is where many prayers collapse. They start from fear, from urgency, from lack. But the prayer Jesus used started from trust, a calm assurance that the Father was already present, already listening, already willing. That kind of prayer doesn't sound desperate. It sounds grounded. It doesn't argue with God. It aligns with Him. And alignment changes everything. When your inner world is settled, the outer world has no choice but to respond. That truth is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It means unanswered prayers are not always about timing or testing. Sometimes they reveal misalignment, not punishment, preparation. The prayer before the miracle was never about forcing God's hand. It was about preparing the vessel. Power doesn't pour into chaos. It flows into order, and order begins inside the one praying. This is why this prayer faded from common teaching. It requires discipline. It demands patience. It cannot be rushed or performed for approval. It works in the hidden place where no one applauds, where no one sees the struggle to quiet the mind and submit the will. But that hidden work produces visible results, always has, always will. The world teaches you to speak louder when things don't change. Jesus taught the opposite. When pressure increased, he slowed down. When stakes were high, he withdrew. When death stood in front of him, he didn't panic. He prayed to align. That alignment released life not once, every time. The pattern never broke. And here is the part that matters now. This prayer is not reserved for miracles on a grand stage. It is for broken homes, for tired minds, for moments when faith feels thin and answers feel far away. Alignment is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It is choosing trust before evidence, obedience before clarity, stillness before action. When you learn to pray this way, everything shifts. You stop chasing outcomes. You start becoming ready. You stop asking why God hasn't moved. You start asking who you need to become. That change alone opens doors no effort ever could. This is not about copying words Jesus spoke. It is about copying the posture he lived in, a posture of surrender, of confidence, of deep connection that does not shake when circumstances threaten. That posture turns waiting into strength, silence into authority, faith into movement. Most people want miracles without preparation, results without refinement. But the order never changes. Alignment comes first, then power follows. Skip the first, and the second fades. Honor the first, and the second becomes inevitable. This is your moment to slow down, not to give up, not to withdraw, but to realign, to stop praying from panic and start praying from trust, to let go of control and step into agreement. That shift is small on the outside, but massive within. And what happens within always shows up in the world around you. The prayer still works because the principle never expired. What changed is attention. Noise replaced stillness. Speed replaced obedience, but the path remains open. The same alignment that preceded every miracle is still available, still powerful, still waiting. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be proven. When alignment is restored, movement follows naturally. And when movement comes from alignment, it carries authority nothing can stop. And this is where it stops being information and starts becoming a decision. Because once you understand this pattern, you can't unsee it. You realize how often you've asked God to move while your heart was still divided. How many prayers were spoken while your mind was racing, your motives mixed, your trust incomplete. Alignment was missing, and without it, even sincere prayers lost their weight. Jesus never treated prayer as a last resort. It was the foundation. Before power flowed outward, authority settled inward. That is why storms obeyed. That is why sickness fled, not because of volume, but because of position. He stood in agreement with heaven before he spoke to earth, and agreement carries a force nothing else can replace. This kind of prayer strips away performance. There is no audience, no rush, no emotional manipulation, just honesty, stillness, submission, and that is exactly why it is rare. Stillness exposes what noise hides. Silence reveals what distraction protects. When everything slows down, excuses fall apart. What remains is truth, and truth is where real power begins. Most people avoid this moment because it feels uncomfortable. It feels like waiting when action feels safer. But waiting with alignment is never passive. It is the most dangerous thing you can do to fear, because fear feeds on chaos, and alignment starves it completely. Once your inner world is settled, circumstances lose their grip. Pressure no longer dictates your response. Faith does. This is the turning point, where prayer stops being transactional and becomes transformational, where you stop asking God to fix everything around you and allow him to reshape what's within you. That reshaping is not gentle. It challenges habits. It confronts impatience. It demands surrender where control once lived. But it also produces clarity you cannot get any other way. When alignment takes root, urgency changes. You stop panicking about outcomes and start moving with purpose. You act not from desperation, but from direction. And direction carries peace even before results appear. That peace is not denial. It is confidence anchored beyond circumstances. The same confidence Jesus carried into every impossible situation. This is why miracles followed him consistently. Not randomly, not occasionally, consistently. Because alignment was consistent. He did not wait for chaos to pray. He prayed to prevent chaos from ruling him. That discipline kept his authority intact. And authority moves things words alone never will. The same principle applies now, not in theory, in practice. Alignment before action changes how you speak, how you decide, how you endure. It keeps you steady when answers delay and calm when pressure rises. It trains you to trust before you see and obey before you understand. That is where faith matures. That is where power rests. Once you step into this posture, your prayers deepen. They slow down. They become less about convincing God and more about becoming ready. Ready to carry what you're asking for. Ready to steward the breakthrough. Ready to stand firm when change comes faster than expected. Because answered prayers can overwhelm an unprepared heart. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aligned. And alignment is available right now. Not after you fix everything. Not after life gets easier. Right here in the tension, in the waiting, in the uncertainty. That is where this prayer works best. Because alignment doesn't require control. It requires trust. When trust replaces fear, movement follows naturally. Doors open without force. Strength appears without striving. And what once felt impossible begins to shift quietly, steadily, undeniably. Not because you demanded it, but because you were ready for it. This is the prayer before the miracle. Not dramatic, not loud, but unstoppable. And once you step into it, nothing stays the same. This is where it becomes urgent. Every day you wait without alignment. You weaken the potential of your own prayers. You rush into requests while your heart is scattered, hoping action will replace preparation. It never does. Results without readiness collapse under pressure. Miracles never ignore the condition of the one praying. They demand it. Every story of power begins with the same invisible choice. Stillness before movement. Surrender before demand. Ignore that, and the world's noise swallows your voice. Honor it, and the impossible bends to your presence. The truth is relentless. Waiting without understanding is wasted energy. Praying without preparation is empty. You can speak the words, but if the soul behind them is unsettled, nothing holds. Jesus never hurried. He never pleaded from panic. Every miracle started with his posture, his focus, his willingness to align with the unseen. That alignment carried authority that reshaped reality itself. Nothing outside him could resist what was first forged within him. This is not comfort, this is challenge. It is a call to examine what you bring into your prayer. Are your motives scattered, anxious, or shallow? Or are you truly ready to receive, to change, to rise? The prayer that precedes every miracle is not about convincing the universe. It is about transforming the one who prays. Power is not a transaction. It is a reflection. What happens outside is always rooted in what happens inside. Until you prepare yourself, nothing truly new can take hold. Until you align, every effort remains fractured. Every plea can falter. Every hope can fade. You cannot outsource this. You cannot delegate your alignment. It is private, personal, unavoidable. The hidden moments carry the weight. The quiet surrender builds the bridge to breakthrough. If you step into this space, you discover strength you never imagined. Patience becomes a weapon. Stillness becomes a force. Trust becomes momentum. And suddenly what once seemed impossible begins to respond. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, until one day the world moves in a way that confirms your readiness. That is the law of alignment. Pressure will test you. Doubt will press against you. You will want to act before you are prepared. That is the danger. The prayer before the miracle is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage, not noise. It demands persistence, OT desperation. Every second spent in distraction weakens the current. Every moment spent in fear delays the shift. But every heartbeat spent in focus, in stillness, in honest surrender, compounds power you cannot manufacture any other way. The storm may rage, the illness may linger, the doors may remain closed, but your position determines the outcome before anything else moves. This is where most stop. They look for shortcuts, for formulas, for visible signs of progress. Jesus never offered that. The path he followed was invisible, patient, exacting. You are invited into that path now, to slow down, to align, to trust before the evidence arrives, to prepare yourself before you demand a change outside yourself. That is where faith becomes unstoppable. That is where prayer becomes a force. That is where miracles find a home in the one who is ready. Do not wait for certainty. Do not wait for comfort. Step into the alignment now. Quiet your heart. Center your mind. Open your soul. Every hesitation you release adds weight to your prayers. Every surrender you offer strengthens your authority. Every moment you practice. Readiness compounds power beyond what words can describe. This is your opportunity to live in the same rhythm that shaped every act of divine power, the same rhythm that moved storms, healed the sick, restored the hopeless, and opened doors that no human effort could ever touch. Miracles are not a relic. They are not history. They are not reserved for someone else. They await those who prepare. They obey alignment. They honor trust. This is your moment to step into that hidden power, to pray differently, to live differently, to act differently. When your heart matches the rhythm of heaven, the world cannot help but follow. Everything shifts, everything responds, everything becomes possible. The prayer still works. The question is, are you ready to become the one it prepares?